Hey, it's Dave Wyman from Danny Dave and More, and this week's Football 101, we're going to do year-end grades, which I did not want to be standing here in this week hoping the Seahawks were going to be able to continue in the playoffs, of course, like everybody else. But at the end of the year, just want to go through all the position groups and categorize this one as pass catchers, tight ends and receivers, not including the running backs. We'll talk about them later. But I thought what this year was all about for the receivers getting a chance to catch the ball, actually. And remember, the Seahawks, 27 attempts per game. They were dead last in the NFL, number 32. And so I'm going to talk a lot about these guys and give them a grade here and talk about what they did with the opportunities that they got. So I'll go through, first of all, Tyler Lockett for a number one receiver to be the size that he is. I'm not sure how tall Tyler is, but when you meet him in person, he looks like he's about 5'7". And he plays so huge for an outside receiver, the way he used his body and got 10 catches during the regular season. I gave him an A+. And you may think that there's some grade inflation going on here, but I'll tell you, this number right here is why I'm rating these guys so highly, because they didn't get a lot of opportunities. Doug Baldwin, the only reason that I would give him an A and not an A+ is just because he missed 3 games, but 50 catches, 618 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And for Doug, you know, he was banged up a lot of the year. I think he's the best route runner in the league, and I hope he retires a Seahawk, but he's just, to me, I think if he's on any other team where it's not like this, where they're throwing it like some of these other teams, 40, 42 times a game, like the Indianapolis Colts, he's going to get 100 catches every year. But Doug, unfortunately, missed a few games. David Moore, here's who David Moore reminds me of, and this is why I'm going to give David a C. First of all, the opportunities. He had 53 targets and only 26 catches. Most of these guys are all, and we'll see with Ed Dickson and Jaron Brown, up into the 70s and even 80s as far as catch percentage. But for David, he had 53 chances, only 26 catches. He did have the 5 touchdowns. And look, David Moore made some huge plays. The 4th and 3 on the 35-yard line that he scored a touchdown on against Carolina. Just a huge catch. But he was inconsistent. He had some times where he, was bobbling the ball, dropped the ball. And so, I thought for David Moore, he kind of reminds me of Golden Tate. Golden Tate, it took him 2-3 years to kind of develop into a pro. One of the plays with David Moore was an interception that ended up ruining a record that could have been for the Seahawks, least turnovers in a year. It would have been 10 had Russell not thrown that interception on a slant against the Arizona Cardinals. It reminded me a lot of the Malcolm Butler interception in Super Bowl 49, where, I think it was Lockett that came, the Lockett with an E, Ricardo. He came on a slant, and same thing, he didn't, take the right angle, and he got knocked off, and Malcolm Butler made the interception. Same thing happened, and Russell ended up throwing his 11th interception, and I thought he could have done something with that. A lot of times the routes that he ran on the go routes could have been more inside. So, I think he has a tremendous upside. And I mentioned Golden Tate. I couldn't think more highly of a receiver than Golden Tate. I think that's where he's headed, but for this year, I gave him a C. Jaron Brown, look, I'm giving him an A, and the reason why is he was only thrown to 19 times, and he caught 14 passes for 5 touchdowns. So, like every, check my math, every 3 throws to him, a little bit less than that, is a touchdown for Jaron Brown. So I just, I thought these guys pretty much did their job. Now, there were a couple of other receivers that came and went, but, for the most part, these are the guys here. Now, for the tight ends, I gave Nick Vannett a solid B. I thought he stepped up. I thought he progressed from last year to being a really good tight end. I wouldn't say he's great, but he's good, and I think if he takes another step, he had 29 catches, 269, 3 touchdowns for Nick. I thought his route running got a lot better, and I think he can develop into a really solid tight end. I'm really excited about this group right here. Will Dissly, let's jump down here to Will, who only played in 3 games, 3.5 really. 8 catches for 156 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, this guy, and he blew out his knee, but in the game that he blew his knee out in, I know he had a catch and was tackled on the sideline. He was abusing Chandler Jones, who was the outside backer for the Arizona Cardinals. His blocking, I mean, Chandler Jones couldn't do anything. And I know he's only in there like a quarter and a half, but he is a great blocker. Now, the question is he going to be able to come back from that injury? But you know, he's a rookie, and because of that, maybe a little grade inflation there, but I gave him an A because for the games that he was in, and you know, I did discount, I guess, Doug for not being in every game, but you know, for a rookie to come out and do what he did and get those 2 touchdowns. Ed Dickson's the one that I'm most excited about. Now, this includes playoff numbers, by the way, because they threw to him 5 times in the playoff game against Dallas, and he got 4 of them. And that was the case with him all year long. Now, he did only play in 10 games. He missed 6 games, but Ed Dickson was thrown to 18 times, caught 16 of them for 185 yards and 3 touchdowns. And when he was brought in, there was a lot of talk about, well, that's not going to replace Jimmy Graham. He caught 1 more touchdown this year than Jimmy Graham did in Green Bay. And Jimmy Graham played in a lot more games. He had more yardage, but with Ed Dickson's blocking, I mean, you get nothing out of Jimmy Graham. Sorry, he's not a blocking tight end. Ed Dickson is maybe the best blocking tight end in the league. You saw a lot of times where he would come down and seal off that defensive end, and then Dwayne Brown would pull around and lead the running backs on that sweep. And he's just as solid as can be. And I just think for him, he just needs more opportunities. He had a catch in the Dallas game that was probably for 4 yards where he reached out, grabbed it with his hands. He was going to the ground and he kind of spun around and kept the ball up off the ground. He has amazing hands. So I'm giving Ed Dickson an A also, and I would give him an A+ if he played in every game, because these numbers would probably be up, and his blocking is what's so important. You know, we always think about Zach Miller as being like the ideal tight end for the Seahawk offense, and I think Ed, he has a great upside. They signed him to a 3-year deal, and so next year he'll be back, and it's really exciting. So, you know, look, again, you may think that there's, and I'm not picking on David Moore, because I think David Moore is going to be a great player going forward, but this year there's a little bit of inconsistency. He just needs to know how to bring up the bottom part of his game and make it more consistent. All right, we'll check back with you in a week, and we'll either go quarterback, which will be easy, offensive line, or running backs. That's next time on Football 101.